Welcome back to another episode with Healthy Actions Intervening Responsibly, known as HAIR. I am Jacqueline, the founder and your host. The other day, I was talking with a child, and the child asked me if they would still be punished for making a mistake, although it was a mistake. And I asked the child to please repeat that. The 6-year-old asked the question and gave me the heads up that they had a question. And that question once again was, if I make a mistake, will I still be punished for making a mistake, although it was a mistake? And it took me a few moments to really think about that question. And I also thought deeper and what's really behind the question. Well, not only that child, but many children are accustomed to the consequences for making a mistake. And a lot of times the consequences are immediate and they are harsh. Studies tell us that Black girls are perceived to be less worthy of protection, nurturing, playtime, and fun. And that they are seen to be most likely punished immediately for their actions, and that the punishment or the discipline will be harsh. Let's think about that. Let's think about that. From the eyes and the ears of a child. And how it's usually adults that determines what a mistake really is. If it's a legitimate mistake, and if there will be any room or grace for making mistakes. And how frequent is it acceptable to make a mistake? And what's the threshold for making mistakes? What makes this interesting here is that not all children are punished immediately, and that the punishment is usually harsh when they make a mistake. But we do see that time and time again for children of color, that making a mistake costs them dearly. There are penalties for making mistakes, and those mistakes, or the correction for mistakes, is usually going to be harsh and immediate. So that's what I want to talk about today. So what do you think about when you hear a mistake has been made? Can someone freely, openly admit to making a mistake without feeling afraid there will be consequences? The actions will be punitive in terms of responding to their mistakes. Let's think about that. Because I think that is a really critical piece for childhood humanity and for children growing up. No doubt they would be making lots of mistakes. And as human, we deserve to learn from our mistakes. And a lot of times there's not room to really share what we learn from mistakes, especially if you feel afraid to even own up to a mistake. Sometimes children might learn to hide their mistakes or to put their mistakes on someone else. And a lot of times it's because of the punishments that would follow making a mistake. So I'm thinking a lot about this topic. I'm thinking a lot about this because as I've looked at this particular issue of adultification across the nation, I've learned so much about it. I've learned so much about how adults perceive Black children to be older than what they are, how adult professionals tend to overestimate the ages of Black boys by 4 to 5 years older than what they are. And then that Black girls, a lot of adults think that they do things very intentionally to be manipulative, to be controlling. And you know what? When adults think of children in that way, they're going to handle them very different. They're handling them outside of childhood behaviors and childhood qualities and childhood stages of development and growth. And then that's going to give us very, very different results and outcomes in the lives of our children. Well, even historically, Black children were not considered as part of childhood humanity. And in so many ways today, they still are not considered as part of childhood humanity. They are denied. They're denied childhood humanity and access to childhood humanity, which includes benefiting from correction, growing, developing, based on the stages that they're at. And as our children are seen to be older than what they are, they're handled as if they are adults. Now, historically speaking, as I mentioned earlier, Black children were not considered as part of the fabric of childhood humanity and society. And so you'll see there are many images, historically speaking, where Black children were seen working in cotton fields and working on plantations and working in factories and so forth, and that they were separated. They were separated from childhood humanity, had no access to it at all. Even the way they were photographed, they were not considered to be human. History tells us that. History shows us that. And that there's several studies out there that have surveyed adults in terms of how they view teenagers, Black teenagers in particular. And it was a little bit shocking to see the results of a survey that had asked adults, how do they feel about Black children when it comes to being lazy, being competent, being intelligent, being warm, friendly, cordial. And some of the results, again, was very, very shocking. Those results shared that Black children were seen and held to the same standards as Black adults, particularly as Black men. And some of the findings of that was that Black children, particularly teenagers, were lazy compared to Black men. And I gave that a lot of thought. What are we considering to fall in the category as lazy? And a lot of it was like getting a job. And without, once again, considering the childhood humanity and the childhood behaviors. Like, think about that, right? And also the fact that Black children, are seen as, in terms of like being lazy, is concerning their schoolwork. Let's think about that. A lot of children are not happy because of having to do work, or not happy about schoolwork, chores, going to a physical job. What children do you really know that's like, oh, yay, I get to go to work today. I get to work a job. Now, there are some certainly, that is really excited about that. Yes, for sure. Some understand the benefits of working. Some understand, well, if you work and make money, then you can buy this, you can get that, you can save. But not all children have access to that type of understanding, those understandings. And I think we make a lot of assumptions. And also, well, the children that I know, the children in my life, they are excited about playing. And very few of them are excited about, yay, I get to get up and go to school. I get to get up and have to read a book, have to read 5 books at that, have to sit in class all day. And let's talk about even now, the time that we're living in concerning the pandemic. How many children do you know? Well, I know very few that is excited about getting up in the morning, going to sit down at a desk where none of my friends are. I don't have a classroom to turn around and look at some of my buddies, to anticipate maybe lunchtime together, recess time together, walking home together. Like that togetherness, that community, that camaraderie has really been interrupted. So do we expect really them to get up enthused and ready to take on this day and sit in the back room by myself as I'm on Zoom, or what are some of these other platforms, online programs for schools? I'm sure there are lots and lots and lots of them. But how many really are ready and excited to sit there and do some work? I know we often talk about school and we frame it that way: work. Do your work. Have you done your work? It's time for work. And you know what? And it sounds so laborious. For me as an adult, it just sounds so heavy and tiresome and burdensome, and like I'm really not feeling all of this. But we expect them to be just like adults, to understand the seriousness of work, to understand how you're going to benefit from work, to understand and to work for the sake of your future. And we expect them to get it just like that, just like we adults. Well, I'm telling you all, I'm here to say and admit, sometimes work is just, it's work. It's work preparing for work, right? Do you agree with that? Do you have those feelings and experiences as well? And that's another part about this. Humans have feelings and are entitled to their feelings. But very often, we expect children to have no feelings, no emotions about things that they're really not happy about having to do. Well, you know what? Even I'm going back to this. When it comes to Black children, very often they are looked at and treated as if they don't want to do anything that's going to help them in their future. And that's just how we talk to them. Well, you know what? It's your future. It's your future. You know, what you do or what you don't do, you're going to pay the cost for it, honey, for in your future. And it's like, how much does that really resonate or register with children that we're talking about? And again, it doesn't happen for all children. It's not children in every race that are treated like this or seen this way. How can we begin to change our language when it comes to work? Once again, labeling children as lazy, as incompetent, as unintelligent, and totally ignoring, and that's what it is, ignoring the human side of children, the human side, the human needs that children have, regardless of their race. And what I find is that Affirmations are extremely important for children of color. Black children should be hearing more about how amazing you are, how intelligent you are, how brilliant you are, how creative you are, how necessary you are. Like, do we give messages like that? Like, we need you in our community. We need you in our school. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're in our class. You add so much to this class. You add so much to your family. You add so much to your community. You have something to offer. You are enough. How many times do our children hear affirmations? Let's think about it like this and be more specific and direct. How often do children that we label and consider to be lazy, incompetent, unintelligent, how often do we affirm them? Do we give words of inspiration? How many of them that we would categorize as unworthy, unimportant, unneeding of protection, unneeding of nurturing? How often do we even acknowledge their presence? Just by saying, I am so glad you're here, rather than a write-off, rather than not worth the time of day or worthless, rather than a burden or a burden to society. How often do we take responsibility for our words to our children? Well, Nelson Mandela said, there is no greater revelation about society other than how it treats its children. And so, yes, I've gone across this entire nation educating communities and churches, law enforcement also, educators, parents, on the importance of being aware of this one topic, adultification, which is where children are seen to be adult-like, put in adult roles, and there are expectations on them that we typically have for adults. And there has been an amazing results that I've gotten from conducting these trainings and presentations and raising this awareness. Because many people have said to me through evaluations, like the evaluation feedback, they've said to me, I wasn't even aware of the term. Now that you break it down like that, I know what that is. Yeah, it happened in my family. Yeah, I was treated that way when I was a child. I just didn't know what it was called. And that's what many adults have said. In fact, about 95% of adults who have participated in trainings hosted by Healthy Actions, Intervening Responsibly, they have said, I always wondered what it was. I just didn't know there was a term for it. So thank you. You've given me a term for this phenomenon that has pretty much happened all of my life. And so once again, let's give thought to how we are interacting with our children, how we see our children, how we label our children, and how they're held to the same standard just as adults are. Well, I know particularly for Black children, they are held to the same standard and the same expectations that are upon Black adults is casted upon Black children. And I believe us together, we, parents, educators, clergy, law enforcement, schools, physicians, nurses, we together, as a people, as a society, as a nation, we can change the outcomes that many of our children are having that goes against their wellness and their well-being. I hope you join me in this work to make a difference in one child's life, just by giving them access to childhood humanity, which means they are allowed to play, to make mistakes. They should be nurtured. They should be protected. And they deserve to be themselves. Thank you once again for joining another episode of Healthy Actions, Intervening Responsibly. I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Jacqueline.